The year was 1989. New York City, a bustling metropolis, was a city of contrasts. It was a place where dreams were made, but also where nightmares unfolded. The city was grappling with a surge in crime, economic disparity, and a pervasive sense of fear. The streets were alive with the sounds of daily life, but beneath the surface, there was an undercurrent of tension and unease. New York City was grappling with fear and racial tension. The city was a melting pot of cultures, but this diversity often led to friction. Racial tensions were high, and communities of color were frequently subjected to discrimination and violence. Protests and demonstrations were common, as people took to the streets to demand justice and equality. The atmosphere was charged, and the city was on edge. Against this backdrop, a horrific crime took place in Central Park: the brutal assault and rape of a female jogger. Central Park, usually a place of respite and recreation, became the scene of a nightmare. The crime shocked the city and sent waves of fear and outrage through the community. The park, once a symbol of tranquility, was now a place of horror. 5 teenagers, Antron McCray, Kevin Richardson, Yusef Salaam, Raymond Santana, and Corey Wise, all Black and Latino, were swiftly apprehended and charged with the crime. These young men, barely out of childhood, were thrust into the center of a media storm. Their faces were plastered across newspapers and television screens, and they were portrayed as dangerous criminals. The speed of their arrest and the intensity of the media coverage left little room for doubt or due process. The media frenzy that followed painted them as monsters, fueling a narrative of fear and prejudice. Sensational headlines and inflammatory news reports stoked public outrage and fear. The young men were vilified, and their guilt was assumed by many before they even had a chance to defend themselves. The media's portrayal of the case played a significant role in shaping public perception and influencing the course of justice. This is the story of the Central Park Five, a story of injustice, resilience, and the devastating impact of racial bias in the criminal justice system. It is a story that highlights the flaws and failures of a system that is supposed to protect and serve all citizens equally. The Central Park Five were caught in a web of systemic racism and prejudice, and their lives were forever changed by the events that unfolded. It is a story that demands to be told and understood, for it lays bare the deep-seated flaws that continue to plague our society. The case of the Central Park Five is not just a historical event, it is a reflection of ongoing issues that still affect our communities today. By examining this case, we can gain a deeper understanding of the systemic problems that need to be addressed and the work that still needs to be done to achieve true justice and equality. This case serves as a stark reminder of the human cost of prejudice and the urgent need for reform. The Central Park Five were victims of a system that failed them at every turn. Their story is a powerful testament to the need for change and the importance of fighting for justice. It is a call to action for all of us to work towards a more just and equitable society. The Central Park Five case is not just a historical event, it is a mirror reflecting the ongoing struggle for racial equality and justice in America. The issues that were at the heart of this case, racial bias, media influence, and systemic injustice, are still very much present in our society today. The story of the Central Park Five is a reminder that we must continue to fight for justice and equality for all. It throws light on the systemic issues that disproportionately target people of color, particularly young Black and brown men. The Central Park Five were not the first, nor will they be the last, to be caught in the crosshairs of a biased system. Their story highlights the urgent need to address these systemic issues and to work towards a more just and equitable society. Their story is a harrowing testament to the human cost of mass incarceration and the urgent need to address the root causes of crime rather than resorting to punitive measures. The Central Park Five spent years behind bars for a crime they did not commit, and their lives were forever altered by their wrongful imprisonment. Their story is a powerful reminder of the need for criminal justice reform and the importance of addressing the root causes of crime. The case of the Central Park Five continues to resonate today, serving as a chilling reminder of the fragility of justice and the devastating impact of prejudice. Their eventual exoneration brought some measure of justice, but it could not undo the years of suffering and hardship they endured. Their story is a powerful reminder of the need to remain vigilant in the fight for justice and equality. It compels us to confront uncomfortable truths about our society and to work towards dismantling the systemic racism that permeates our institutions. The story of the Central Park Five is a call to action for all of us to examine our own biases and to work towards creating a more just and equitable society. It is a reminder that we all have a role to play in the fight for justice and equality. Only then can we hope to prevent such egregious miscarriages of justice from happening again. The story of the Central Park Five is a powerful reminder of the importance of justice, equality, and the need for systemic change. It is a call to action for all of us to work towards a more just and equitable society where everyone is treated with dignity and respect, and where justice is truly blind. On the evening of April 19, 1989, a young white woman jogging in Central Park was brutally attacked, raped, and left for dead. The attack occurred in a secluded area of the park, a place where the city's hustle and bustle seemed worlds away. The jogger, a regular in the park, had no reason to suspect that this evening would be any different from the countless others she had spent running through the park's winding paths. The crime sent shockwaves through New York City, already grappling with high crime rates and racial tensions. The city was a powder keg, with residents on edge and the media quick to amplify any story that could capture the public's attention. This particular crime, with its brutal nature and high-profile victim, was the perfect storm. The media quickly seized the story, fanning the flames of fear and outrage. News anchors delivered updates with a sense of urgency, and reporters swarmed the scene, eager to capture every detail. The story dominated headlines, pushing other news to the sidelines. The victim, a 28-year-old investment banker, had been jogging through Central Park after work when she was attacked. She was known for her dedication to her job and her fitness routine, often seen running in the park's early morning or late evening hours. Her routine was a testament to her discipline and commitment, making the attack all the more shocking. She was found hours later, severely beaten and unconscious, with no memory of the assault. Paramedics rushed her to the hospital, where doctors worked tirelessly to save her life. The extent of her injuries was severe, and her survival was uncertain. The park, once a place of solace and recreation, was now a crime scene, cordoned off with yellow tape and swarming with investigators. The brutality of the crime and the prominence of the victim, white, wealthy, and working in a prestigious field, ignited a media frenzy. Reporters camped outside the hospital, eager for updates on her condition. Press conferences were held, with officials providing scant details, fueling speculation and fear. Newspapers ran sensationalized headlines, portraying the city as overrun by lawless youths. The narrative was clear: the city was under siege and no one was safe. The headlines were designed to sell papers, but they also stoked the fires of fear and division. The public, bombarded with images of the victim and fueled by inflammatory reporting, demanded swift justice. People gathered in coffee shops and on street corners, discussing the case with a mix of fear and anger. The city was united in its demand for action, but divided in its understanding of the underlying issues. The pressure on law enforcement to find the perpetrators was immense. Detectives worked around the clock, following leads and interviewing witnesses. The case became a top priority, with resources being diverted from other investigations. The police were under the microscope, and failure was not an option. The atmosphere in the city was electric with fear and suspicion, creating a fertile ground for hasty judgments and collective blame. People looked over their shoulders, wary of strangers. The sense of community was eroding, replaced by an undercurrent of distrust and anxiety. The Central Park jogger case became a symbol of the city's perceived decline, fueling racial tensions and solidifying the image of young Black and Latino men as a threat to public safety. Community leaders called for calm, but their voices were often drowned out by the clamor for retribution. The case was not just about one crime, it was about the soul of the city. It tapped into existing anxieties about race and crime, creating a climate where justice could easily be miscarried. The lines between right and wrong, guilt and innocence, became blurred. The city's leaders faced a daunting task: to restore order and trust without sacrificing justice. The stage was set for a tragedy of epic proportions. The courtroom became a theater, with the world watching. The stakes were high, and the consequences of the trial would reverberate far beyond the walls of the courthouse. The Central Park jogger case was more than a legal battle. It was a reflection of a city in turmoil, struggling to find its way. In the hours and days following the brutal attack on a jogger in Central Park, the NYPD launched a massive investigation, rounding up dozens of young people who had been in or around Central Park that night. The city was gripped by fear and outrage, demanding swift justice. The police, under immense pressure to deliver results, cast a wide net, detaining numerous teenagers and young adults in an effort to find the perpetrators. Among those detained were 5 teenagers: Antron McCray, Kevin Richardson, Yusuf Salam, Raymond Santana, and Corey Wise. These young boys, who were between the ages of 14 and 16, were about to face a harrowing ordeal that would change their lives forever. These 5 boys, ranging in age from 14 to 16, were swept up in the dragnet, their lives about to be irrevocably altered. They were ordinary kids, with dreams and aspirations, suddenly thrust into a nightmare they could never have imagined. They were taken to the police station and interrogated for hours on end, without the presence of their parents or legal counsel. The boys, inexperienced and scared, were left to navigate the intimidating environment of the interrogation room on their own. During these grueling sessions, they were pressured, intimidated, and threatened with long prison sentences if they didn't confess to the crime. The police used every tactic at their disposal to break the boys' resolve, playing on their fears and vulnerabilities. The police, under immense pressure to solve the high-profile case and appease a city demanding justice, employed coercive tactics to extract confessions from the terrified teenagers. The officers were determined to close the case quickly, and the boys became convenient scapegoats. They were promised leniency if they cooperated and threatened with severe consequences if they didn't. The boys, desperate and confused, were led to believe that confessing was their only way out of the terrifying situation they found themselves in. Sleep-deprived, scared, and isolated, the boys eventually broke down and provided statements that fit the narrative the police were building. They were manipulated into giving false confessions, each boy's story molded to fit the police's version of events. The boys' confessions, however, were riddled with inconsistencies and did not match the physical evidence found at the crime scene. Despite these glaring discrepancies, the confessions were used as the cornerstone of the prosecution's case. Despite the lack of concrete evidence linking them to the crime, the 5 teenagers were charged with the rape and assault of the Central Park jogger. The legal system, swayed by the confessions and the intense public pressure, moved forward with the charges. The media, already heavily invested in the narrative of a gang of Black and Latino youths terrorizing the city, amplified the police narrative, further solidifying the image of the Central Park 5 as guilty in the public's mind. Sensational headlines and biased reporting fueled public outrage, creating a climate of fear and prejudice that overshadowed the truth. The boys were vilified before they even had a chance to defend themselves, their fate seemingly sealed by the court of public opinion.